Good evening and welcome to beautiful snow leopards in pastels. Just enjoy exploring and experimenting tonight and making a good old mess because pastels can be a bit messy but all fun. So just enjoy the process and let it take shape over the time. Good luck. We'll see you soon. So we have a lovely snow leopard. We've got obviously lots of images. So there's different ones to choose from. So if you're wanting to really put a nice, like kind of get some real lovely natural background in, then that's nice. But obviously you'll put a lot less time into the snow leopard. So that's fine. You know, if you fancy getting a little bit more of the full composition, a full picture on there, that's one to do. That one will work right from the very back. So the snow leopard will be the last thing that goes on over the top. But this one, which is obviously landscape, and there's more of the snow leopard in there, the body, and not as much background. But even so, again, we'll still start with the background because that's the back layer. It's very similar to acrylics in the way that we build things up back to front. And with that, you know, if you thinking about doing this and you want to make sure that your proportion is as good as it can be, then again, a grid works brilliantly. So I'm just folding that bit up like that. And that will really help you with, you know, just very briefly sketching because we'll be very briefly sketching out, just getting enough on there that gives us a bit of a start because we'll be shifting and moving all of these things around. And then that one is lovely as well. So we've got the snow leopard there. It just depends on the pose and everything. Obviously, the face is turned a little bit. So that's the beauty of doing animals like this, that you can get all sorts of poses. You know, it's how we capture that really, you know, that stare, isn't it, and everything. So I'll give you some really good tips to capture that. But again, we'll start backwards to the front there. And again, you could use a little grid to help. It is helpful when you've got quite a lot going on. But even with this one, I would be very much inclined, in fact, I'm going to you know, fold that in half that way, and half that way. That's how I do it, just so I make sure I'm accurate with it, because I'm not the most accurate with working out exactly where the middle is. So I'm going to go in with this, just because I think it will help us. Now, nothing is set in stone here. So the idea is that we start with some of this lovely background and bring that forward, but there's just no point in putting it all behind the leopard because it adds an extra layer onto our paper. Because it's a fairly good sized block, we'll start by just sketching lightly in with a lighter coloured or a slightly darker coloured pastel. You'll do that as lightly as possible because you want to, you know, any lines on them you need to move. So it's just enough so you can see it. Now, obviously, mine's going to be a lot of a darker line or a lighter line so that you can see it on the camera. But when you're doing it yourself, ideally, you know, because these lines, remember, everything we do is movable. And as long as we think it's movable, it's movable, it's movable, it's not set in stone the whole way through, and we keep shifting as we go, it will be absolutely fine. It's when we just have that fixed mindset and we think, that's it, I've made a mistake, there's nothing I can do with it. But that is not true at all with when we're using pastel. We can always move it. So I'm just going to go in with a colour here. I'm just going to draw a line down here as well, just so you can see I'm translating this. I'm actually putting my grid on.
Sorry, what colour pastel paper?
So you can select the colour paper, you know, to enhance your background. So, you know, if you're picking this one, you could do like a bluey or a grey, or, you know, with this one's maybe a green, or even, you know, a beigey colour that's a bit warmer. And again, you can go with the dark one for that one. You can do this on white paper, but if there's a lot of snow or something like that, it's quite difficult. And also with a leopard, it's quite difficult to build some of the colour up with white. It means you've got a lot of colour to put on there. So just have a think about it, but it can be done with cream or white. It's not the end of the world at all if you've got that. But I quite like the papers to come through and just give just a little bit of warmth or a little bit of cool if there's a lot of cool colours in there. And we can use that as part of the background. So just really lightly sketching out. Although I'm going to go in, and again, I will end up shifting some of these lines. That's absolutely fine. And we're just going to get a very light line on there, which again, as I said, when we get more into the real detail in there, we will move it. And that's great because you are actually then, you're just improving it all the time and moving things around. So that's good. So I'm just going to go in with this this kind of line here, and we can use this quarter here just to get a nice curve. I'm going about 2/3 up here. It's kind of a steady curve comes back round here. I'm also looking at how far over it comes over into this side. And again, we know it's not a really steep curve. Again, you might end up adjusting that curve slightly, that's fine. I'm going to pop this ear in while I can. And there's one bit, there's a bit of the ear coming forwards, isn't there? And then there's a bit of the ear going back. But that's as much as I'm getting in for now because we've got lots to do to build up yet. And also, you don't want to put all the details and then find out like the whole ear needs to be moved. So just kind of just tentatively sketch some in. But this line coming down here, might make it that slightly move there. And then I'm just following, that's a little bump here. Just kind of following that. And then, if you're not sure how far it comes out, then just bring an outside line that comes to whereabouts you think that actually comes out to on the page. And then it might end up just changing this line a little bit. That comes out here. That's fine. Sometimes that helps us to adjust it. If we just put an outside measure, we think, oh, yeah, it's a bit far out there. And then I'm just going to pop this ear in here, and then we can compare the size. If we're not sure about the ears, this one's going backwards. We can just compare just slightly the size of it, and also, where does it come to? So if you followed a ruler straight across there, there'd be a little gap. So we can do that with ours. It may be that you need to make your ear slightly taller, or that you need to drop another ear in. So I'm going to do that there. Just check. I can cross. I've got a gap. Yeah, that's fine. That helps us a little bit as well. But as I said, we can shift these lines about. It's going to look a bit odd anyway, because it always does when you have a very small outline and there's, there's still lots of shape to put in. The pastel puts in the shape really. So I'm just following this outside edge down here to where this nose comes across. Excuse me. And at this point, I'm just going to have a little look at where this part of the nose, now it looks really angular here, doesn't it? So I'm actually what I'm going to do is start to put in where I think the eye crosses over here, which is quite handy. So just slightly where I think this comes out into this section here. Now I can draw the eye in more detail in a little while, but sometimes it helps to actually map out where this part of the nose comes down here. So because everything leads from the eyes, it's really, really helpful to kind of get a marker. So don't worry about the shape. We'll put that in a bit. We'll come back to it and we'll definitely change it. But what we can do is look, can you see that like follows the shape of the side of the nose down? So we can almost just like look at that angle, whoops, and literally transfer that over. And again, we can still move it. It's not a problem. So I'm bringing that, and it will feel a bit flat. There's a bit of a curve there. And then here we've got a similar thing. So what we're going to do there, again, is we can look whereabouts, if we went across, for example, with that eye straight across, so this is why we use a straight line just to help, we can see that's just a little bit underneath it. So you can even draw those on if that helps to think, okay, that's straight across. We can, these lines are movable if you're doing it nice and lightly. Then we can then look at the fact that this one feels like this part of the nose is coming in here. And we want this to come out. There's a bit of an eye, a bit of an eyelash kind of thing there, isn't it? Like the top of the eye there. And then there. But again, I'll end up changing that slightly, but I'm just popping it in. Just get rid of that line, 'cause it's in the way now. Anything that comes in the way, you can just move it. And I've really done that so that I can see how this comes forward. So part of the nose here that crosses, we want it to kind of cross over there. Now it does look really odd, and this is going to start to come in a little bit. And then what we're going to do is just have a look. It will help us to work out where this part of the nose is here. And again, I'm not going into massive detail yet. I'm just putting a kind of this, just a little bit of shape in here where the nostril is. And a bit down there. So it will look like a really straight, and it will start to look like a tiger before it takes shape. And that's because we've got all these shapes to put in here. So don't worry when you look at it and you think, oh, this drawing looks terrible. It's really not like, it won't, because we haven't got any of the shaping with the colours yet. So expect it to not look quite how it should. So I've got this in here. So I'm going to follow where the nose is. Follow now this lovely bit of the mouth here coming down, and then you can just pop in some of these little marks here just to kind of get the shape. And we can see that it's coming down a little bit, but again we'll put a lot more shape in. It comes down, doesn't it? And then it comes back up there. Lots to think about. And then we're just following this line around, really. Kind of got a bit of a chin there as well. Beautiful, aren't they? Just absolutely gorgeous. There we go. So that's really all we need to start with, because we'll work into this ear a bit more as we go. You can just put a little bit around, but you can see here there's a whole lot of, like, all of it comes all the way down there, which will make that face longer. Here, we'll make it wide. I mean, if you want to pop something like that in, just so you can see it, that helps a bit, but we've got a lot of work to do on that yet. But you know, it's a really good start, just getting a few lines in, and everything we do will soften it down. When we get the eyes in, that will kind of feel a little bit more intense to start with, because we've got this, we'll have this like this dark eye and then all the background, but that's fine. So if you're doing one of the lines that's sorry, the one that's sitting down, then you just got to think about, you know, the curves of the leg, or the one where the portrait one where it's sitting upright. Again, it's just working out how big, how far up do the legs come within that quarter, etc., and then to the shoulders. So you're just drawing one bit at a time, and you can use the another bit to kind of draw the snow leopard. So that's really, really nice. And then when you've got that just kind of very simply drawn out, because we'll end up going over it, we'll even end up bringing a little bit of the background into the snow leopard, just in case we make something smaller so that that is coming, the background's coming right into it a little bit. And then we can always overlap it. We can always overlap it if we want it to get bigger, that's fine, but we're going to make sure we can get that background in. So this tester paper is quite helpful when we're looking at pastel and you're looking at the colours in the background. So what we tend to do is get the, whichever bit we're doing, so we're looking at the background now, is you tend to, if you can, get your shadowy colours in first and then fix those in. So, you know, some may be darker than others. And if you're not sure which to go in with, just try a couple of colours there. So I'm looking over here, I'm seeing a few like a browny colour there. And it's best fit. So when I'm trying it on my tester paper, I'm putting a fair amount of pressure in and just using it on its side. I'll try and just switch around so you can see it this way, even though I'm left-handed. I'm putting a fair amount of pressure on. And then what you can do is rub it so it covers the paper more. Okay, so just try a couple. If you use a dark one first, your dark ones first, you will want to make sure that you're giving your hands, your fingers, the clean in between. The worst thing about pastels is we can muddy our pastel work. And one of those ways is by transferring the pastel by our fingers. We've got to be a bit careful. I'm also going to go in with these kind of bluey colours. Again, they're quite dark compared to these, so that's why I'm starting there. So again, I'm testing the colour. We might not have a colour that we think is really a true likeness, but what we can do is just use the best fit pastel that we've got in our set. And that's why actually pastels are lovely, because we can be really bold with them. We end up sometimes using colours we never would normally use. Or, you know, if you've got a couple of colours that are similar, you could overlay one. So you'll have to fix it in first. But I could, for example, go in with, you know, if I'm trying to get this blue, but I haven't got it, and can go in, and you need to test this on your paper first. A little bit underneath of one blue. You don't mix it, it doesn't mix on the paper, but the two colours together will make a different colour. Then I could maybe go in with like a greeny colour or something like that over the top of it and see if it gives me what I'm after. So we're just layering two colours over. So you can change the colour of something slightly just by layering over two colours. But again, I'm really just making sure when I'm flitting between them that I can definitely give it a clean. And then this one. There. I'm going in with a bit of pink, but again, you know, just go in with the colours you can see. So I'm just going to pop these colours in the side. One of the things, as well as getting used to how much to put on, what we'll need to think about is maybe trying not to mix the colours together, because we've got like the dark ones, if it'll all become the muddy mess. So this is why we try and get some of those darker ones in place first. So I'm going to go in. My paper's really textured, so this is something else that you'll discover as you're working through it, but it's fun to have a go at. I'm just going to go in with a bit of a darker colour in here that I can see. And sometimes the paper might be really textured and that texture come through. If it's not, that's fine. I'm fixing that into place so that I'm just going to blow off a little bit of thing, so that I'm not going to muddy it further by mixing in the chalk dust. So you fix it in, and then pretty much anything that overlaps, you can pop on a bit harder. So I'm going to go in with this colour now, show it me. I'm going to go over a little bit over my brown, but I'm kind of coming over here. I'm going to fix it in fine over this side because there's nothing to smudge it with, so I'm not worried about that. But when I come to maybe overlapping it and making it a little bit more blended here, I'm not going to really rub it. I'm going to use a light touch, really light. I'm almost just kind of stroking that over the top of that brown one a little bit. Just popped a little bit of the blue over. Now, the texture takes a bit of getting used to. Sometimes people really don't like the texture and other people love it. So we can always put a little bit more of a layer on. And our paper at some point is going to reach saturation point, which means it will start to come off again and you will not be able to put any on top. It will just lift off. And the only way of discovering what that saturation point is actually having a go. And then when it happens, it's like, I mustn't put any more on now. But again, every paper is different. I'm just now going to pop in these pinks. Now, blues and pinks are opposite end of the spectrum because this is quite a warm pink I'm putting on. So one's cool, one's warm. Now, again, if I really kind of blend those in together, we're going to end up with this muddy grey mess. So again, where it's not overlapping, I can like give that a nice blend with my finger. But then where I want it to kind of like just blend in a little bit, I'm nice and light with my finger, just brushing it over so it just fixes in. You can make it a little bit, very lightly, a little bit like kind of out of focus by doing that. If there's any other colours, like lighter colours, so we tend to work darker, brighter and mid-tone colours, and then we put the light on the top, just like we do acrylics actually. So I'm going to blow any dust that's off that, and I'm just going to go over, just want to fuse it all out a little bit. Now I'm going in and putting a bit of pressure on that because it will just lift off on the side of my pastel. Quite a bit of pressure. So with pressure is in the pastel chalk, and with a clean finger, now I'm really very light of touch. Any top light layers are really lightly applied with your finger, sorry, lightly fixed. So I feel like that's got a bit fusy. That's why I've put that little bit of light colour over there in this area. And it really is just trial and error. Test your colours. So I'm going to move around. I'll just do a little this background, then I will stop and we can chat about it. But just keep putting it on. I think the biggest error when people are first starting out that they make, and that's absolutely fine to do it, is not putting enough on so that the pastel kind of does that and then you can't move it anywhere. So always just try put a bit more on its side and just get practice using it in. It can feel awkward to start with, but as you get to use them it loosens off, it feels much more natural. So I could use this paper to come through a bit as one of the colours. Or I can apply more colour. So I've just got some orangey ones here. I'm going to go in with ones that I'm going to use more darkly first. Now again, these are going to slightly overlap at this side. So I'm just very gently moving that in there because again, they're the opposite. One's cool, one's bright. So I'm going in lightish on there with these just because I don't want a really intense colour as well. That's the other thing. And I'm smudging that out because I still want it to be a bit blended in the background and not to be able to see too much. But it's getting enough on so we can cover it without it being too dark. So again, we're just exploring all these things. It's quite enjoyable once you start to kind of blend it. And then I'm going to go in with a nice bright. I'll have a little look, what have I got? Maybe a peachy one or yeah, I'll try a peachy one in there. And again, this is like lighter now, so I'm going to build this up and put plenty on here. I'm bringing it down a bit over where the edge of the lions goes as well. As lion, keep saying lion. Snow leopard. And I'm a bit gently kind of going over the top of the other one. Now this is slightly different because these colours are similar tones. I've got peaches and orange. So you can, yes, it'll get, if I really rub it, it's going to get, it'll kind of will mix up a little bit. But actually, you're not as in danger as being as muddy because we've got similar tones on there. So we can kind of focus a little bit more on, getting some of that pastel on without worrying quite as much about it, muddying everything. And I'm just brushing it nice and lightly over each little area, which is really nice. Moving that down, so we've gone dark to light. The background also is going to completely change. It's very tempting to get really pulled into this detail of the background, but just kind of have an explore with it, and then we'll come back to it after we really start to pop in the snow leopard, because it kind of sinks and melts away into the background a little bit. So don't worry too much about, you know, oh gosh, is it right? Is it accurate? Just have a little play. And you can always go back and pop a little bit in. So I'm just blowing this chalk off all the time, and then I'm moving down, you know, looking at, I'm going to keep going this way. There's no real, you know, I would like to get some of these darks in underneath that, so I'll bring that bit over the top. So I suppose I could do that, just looking at it, but I'm just going to go in with some nice grey hues here. Nice light ones. I'll have to test this, I think, just to make sure I'm happy with the light. I may even actually go in with a light blue. I think I'll do that. So this is why we need to test it, because they don't always turn out. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit. I might be overlapping that cheek just in case. Just in case I'm going to make the face a little bit narrower. So again, just bringing in these nice little tones here. Just very gently bringing those over the top of where the snow leopard is. It's quite light near the face area, isn't it, actually? So I'm going to go in with a slightly lighter bluey one. You can go in with cream or any colour you want to in there. Again, it's just experimenting and exploring. And we get some, it's a light blue. Now there's nothing else there. It's just the end of where I've popped a little mark. So again, I'm not going to really muddy it, but I can bring it over the top a little bit. And then any areas that are really kind of light and bright, I'm going in with a bit of a creamy one here because it is quite light there. So I'm going to go over the top of that one. I'm using little circular motions sometimes, because that sometimes if you've got plenty of pastel on it, will work into your paper nicely. A little bit of white here again, because that's fine, but I'm just, you know, just putting it on tentatively. You can put any colours in, you see, that's the beauty of this. It's really nice for that. Cream. And then it's like, I'm going to bring some of this colour up and then overlap some of this and bring it down. But so we're just exploring that, just nice and soft. Stops everything getting really muddied up. And we've got down here maybe some darker greys, blues, you know, whatever you've got that's a near match to what you'd like to put on. I think I might go just slightly lighter than that one. Try this one. It can be really quite different in tone, some of the colours that you might have in there. Popping some of these little linear effects in, you know, because it feels like it's doing that. And because we've not got like a tool in our hand, like a paintbrush, we're just using our pastel a little bit like it. You know, you can kind of get some shapes and things on it with the side. And then your finger's your tool, really. So just keep popping on what you can see there and what you want on there. And go in with some like lighter ones at the bottom here again. And again, you know, this is similar tones. So we don't need to worry too much about that. Yeah, just explore the colourways. And then in a moment, we'll take a pause and I'll see how one's getting on. I'm just bringing this, you know, these lighter ones down where I feel I want to. And again, you know, we're not too worried about this getting too, you know, really muddy. I mean, it can get a bit muddy if we're not careful, but just a little bit in. You know, and then pop in. I might actually pop a little bit of that turquoisey colour down here, or just for some colour, because sometimes pastels, as I said, pastels are marvellous for just adding a touch of colour with something that we would never normally do. So I'm going to be a bit bold there and just add a little bit in. I'm doing that nice and carefully. I should have really put that down, I suppose, first, because it's a bit darker, but I'll just pop some over the top just to bring in a little bit of colour. And again, we're just making sure our fingers are clean in between putting any of the backgrounds on. So we got there. So I'm just going to finish off with a slightly lighter one down here. It's like a creamy one, I think. Over the top. Just very lightly over the top of those. I don't really want those to be smudged in. So I was pressing it up, you know, to get quite a bit of the chalk off that one. I'm just going to do the same here because I'm feeling like there's some little shapes in there. And just pop that in. And again, very lightly over the top. But it really doesn't matter, you know, if it gets a bit muddy or whatever, again, that'll stop us doing it. So the only thing you might have to do is just wipe down your chalk pastel a little bit, because sometimes it just gets like muddy edges. So like, this is quite bright here, so I'm going to go in. That was the last bit I wanted it to overlap. So it's sometimes working out, you know, what comes first, what overlaps first. So bring that in and then very lightly over the top, pulling it over. There we go. I've put anything in just. So just working the background in a little bit, making sure your fingers are dry as well. So having a bit of tissue is quite handy because you don't want to bring a wet finger into that because it'll just it'll start being a bit you know, bringing your paper up a little bit. So just take a pause there and see how you're getting on with that, and just explore and take your time with it. I'm working quite small, so it is a little bit quicker for me. Okay, so we're now going to put so much lovely shape and the patterns and everything in and really observe what's going on here. So what we're going to need to think about next really is you know, thinking about all the tones, all the different shades that we've got within here, because actually we want to look at what is really white and what isn't, because if we look here, the best way of doing it is if you've got a white bit of paper somewhere, I'm just using the edge of this here. That's my check against what's white. And when I start looking, that is at this end, I think there's a bit here. Perhaps there's a bit there. Might be a tiny bit there and a tiny bit there. So when you start to actually look, there's so many different shades. There's also these really lovely warm colours, these kind of light caramel colours coming through, and some really warm, almost like sienna or orangey colours, burnt sienna or orange colours. As well as all these lovely, very dark shadows in here as well, which we need because that shows the depth of the ear, but also of the markings. So we've got a few things and we've got lots that overlaps, but what we need is to be able to put some core colours down in some of these areas, and then we can work over some nice soft markings over the top. So where normally we would put dark colours down, actually, it may not be ring true for some of these areas because some of them we may have the dark markings over the top. So we've just got to look at that and decide what's happening. The first thing I'm going to do is pop in the shape of the eyes, because actually we can really use the eyes on any animal to then start to follow the markings that go around the eyebrow, across the cheek, down through the nose, and then across the front of the mouth and all of that, and then across the top of head and ears. Now, you don't have to do, like, we'll get the eyes in. I would suggest doing a little bit of this, because what we can start to put in is a little bit more directional mark making. Now, around the eyes, you do tend to get more of the furry bits where you can see it more clearly. So some of that we might just pop the markings in, so we can almost use our pastel like an actual pencil. But other areas want to get kind of blocks of colour in and then start to work into them. So we'll have a little look, but I'm going to get these eyes done first. So you can use a pastel pencil. Obviously, I've got not much space, but I am still going to demonstrate how we can use like another colour in there. I'm actually going to go in with black for this one, because often we do get that very dark marking. Now, if you're working really tiny like I am on A5, this is where it gets difficult. So I want to just do my best to kind of create some of the shape I can with the very edge of the pastel. Or maybe having to change some of this in a moment, but that's fine. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow the bottom of the shape of that lovely teardrop eye down here. Or even if I can't get it really perfectly, because I'm dealing with a big chunky pastel with not a very small eye, this is where I can use my little stub here, the paper blending stub. And I tend to use one end I use for darks, and one end is for slightly light, slightly lighter colours or whatever. Or you could do one warm, one blues and darks. But you can use this tip, or you can use a rubber blending tip as well. And all we're going to do there is it just helps you get in those nooks and crannies. So you can literally use it to move. I can use that to move this pastel where I want it to go, like a pencil. I'm just kind of tracing over and pulling the shape around, so we end up with a much kind of sharper edge in a way. That's what's happening really. And just bring it over. So that's what the blending tips are for. They're fabulous. Like that. And that's what, you can literally move that colour around with it. So it makes it much easier. So let's see this one as well. So this one isn't quite as dark. I might just use it very light. So I can almost use my pastel a bit lighter as well. This kind of comes over and the shadow's under that side, and bring it out a bit because it feels like it's coming out. And I've brought some of that background in as well. And then I'm just going to use it slightly lighter down here. That comes down. under there. And again, I can use this like little blending tip to create the shape that I want with it. Blow some of this chart, blow some of the dust off there. Now, don't worry if you do it and you think, oh no, I've gone a bit over or whatever. You can just put the shape back over the top with the pastel, which I'm going to do that slightly there because I've gone a little bit out. And then what we're going to be looking at, we're observing the other colours in. So I'm seeing that some of this feels to me in here a little bit more a tad like of a browny colour. So I'm just going to use a little bit of my pastel pencil to pop that in, but you can use your blending tip as well, just to lighten that up slightly because it doesn't feel quite as dark as some of this does here. Okay, so I'm just very lightly fixing that tip in with my finger. The blending tips will have fixed this in for you, so that's really helpful. Around there. And I'm not going to take all these tiny little ones up yet until I've got the colour around the eyes. So there might be some little, you know, eyelash hairs or whatever that we kind of can bring over the top afterwards as well. But we can sort that. And then I'm just looking at any other colours I'm seeing in there. But again, I'm seeing this blue. I'm going to pop that in. But if you can see another colour, then by all means, pop that in, whatever colour you're seeing. And then I'm working in, there's a little bit of a light area here. I'm going to pop that a little lighter one in, but then I'm going to try and get the shape. There's all sorts of kind of greens in here, and I think I'm going to try a couple of greens together. I feel like there's one that's a bit more shady, and you know, it might be brown, you might be seeing brown. I'm going to go in with two different greens here, a lighter green and like more of a kind of like a mossy green, I'd call that. But obviously there's also a little bit of the pupil there, and you might want to go in with a darker colour to get that in. So I'm going to, because the pupil comes on top of the eye, this is where I was saying the rules can change quite a lot with this. I'm going to get some of this mossy colour in here and fix that in just because it's a bit darker. And again, I'm going to be using my blending tip to do that for sure. But not the side I used to do the black one, because otherwise it'll start getting a little bit Now these eyes can look really strange for a while, so don't worry at all. It will be okay. Just going to put a little bit of this darker one in where I think I can see this, where I think that the pupil is. So what we're doing is we're just starting to build up a little bit of information about it, really. Kind of blowing that out of the way, that does. I've got a little bit at the top, just a tiny bit in here. And then I'm going to try a little bit of the bottom of the eye here. Follow this round with this lighter green. That's because that's the colour I'm seeing. But whichever colour you're seeing, you pop that one in. I'm just using right the edge. But again, you can always pop in, you know, you can always use your blender and bring that shape round a little bit if it's feeling a bit, you know, not quite the shape you want. And it's just a bit of a knack when we're doing things that are a bit more detailed, just to like just practice using the edge of it and things like that. But keep going. We can always just practice. Like I said, don't worry if it goes over or whatever, because you can put other lines back in. That's the beauty of pastel. So the final thing would be, you know, to actually get the little glint in the eye. And I would go in with a nice little bright white bit in there. Now, to go over all of that pastel that you've already got in, you need to kind of just put a good deal of pressure without really having to actually, so you tend to get a bit of a shape. A couple of shapes together. Sometimes it just depends on what's reflected in it. So I'm just going to stop there, just put a couple of little lines on. I'm not seeing it as much in this side, but it's quite a bit lighter, so I might just pop a bit of light. And I've just like gone and pushed it in, pushed the pastel in to leave a nice little mark in there. Okay. So I'm seeing in here there's a few little lighter marks. I'm not going to go in with the white, I don't think. I'm just going to go in with a little bit of that lighter green. You could put another colour in. Just again, where you get that little bit of light kind of listening where it's wet. And then you can always go over and just change the shape of anything as you're going. You can put things back in. You know, if you've lost, say, you've lost some of the shape of the eye, for example, because you've been putting the other shades over, then just carefully go back and pop it in. Always the option to do that. Okay. And there still is once we've done that. So, and this one obviously is looking a bit strange at the minute, but once that one's over the top as well, that's going to help a little bit. So from there, then we can really start to look at some of the features and things that are coming off. What I might just do is just pop back a couple of the features, like where I think the ears are going to go, just so that, because it can look a little bit abstract, can't it, without those in. So if you wanted to pop back, if it's gone over it and you think, oh, I need something in just to be able to see it is actually a snow leopard, then by all means pop that in, because I've gone quite over the head and brought it quite in here. So I'm going to just pop back where I'm thinking it's going to go. And this is why I said it's a great opportunity to actually have a little look at if you want to put anything, you know, change it a little bit if you want to pop it. Do you want to move anything, for example? Do it lightly enough, you can do that. And the heavens a bit wider. Right, so we've got things like, you know, because I can see now this needs to come over the top of there, and that's fine. So what I'd be thinking about now is like, what comes next? Where are we going to go to with this? I'm going to go down and just get some of this nose and around the eyes here. And then you start to feel that will feel very flat because this is very angular. So we've got no softness there. We've got the sharp eyes and the sharp nose. So it will feel like, you know, not like the leopard. But as we start to bring in all the shapes and things in, it will. So don't worry about that at this point, is all I'm trying to say. It will transform a bit later on in the evening once we start to go in. So, you know, decide again, do you want greys? Do you want blues? Do you want some taupey colours? We can mix a couple of those in together. Do you want some warmer ones? You want to use your paper? So all I'm going to do here is I'm just observing what's going on around on this nose and what colours I've got there, and I'm popping those down. Definitely get this lovely marking, because we can also kind of use the markings to help us as well. So I'm going to get a couple of lots of this lighter one in, which is a bit more taupey, and I'm going to go in with some greys, using my paper a little bit to come through, and just trying to lay down a little bit of a colour, because we can then start to work over the top of that. I'm also going to bring that right over the corner of my eye because it does cross over, so you don't see that corner of the eye. It's going to soften, that will soften down then as well because there's more fur there. I'm also looking, I'm going to make my nose a bit longer. We can be observing things like that. Does anything need to be a bit longer? And we can do that. So we're just getting these fabulous colours into place. So again, like I said, it's going to look a bit odd. Don't worry about that at this moment. So even like down here, I'm observing these markings coming down here. I can pop back some of these like sandier colours in here. I'm just going to kind of wiggle a few little patterns over the top of that grey. Just to get just to get a little bit of colour in there. Before I actually just start to, decide how far that comes down for the nose. It's quite bluey grey, isn't it, that down there? Or whatever colour you might be seeing. And then we can just see here this fur at the side, which is quite helpful. You can start to pop a little bit of shadow back in as well. If you've seen some shadowy markings over there, that sometimes helps to work out, the shape around the eye and things. So we've got some of this shadow over the top of the nose here. And again, any shadowy bits that are coming out, use the end of your pastel or pencil, or you just, So we're just starting to kind of help ourselves get some of the idea of the shape of the face just by popping in. You can just wiggle that in so it's nice and soft. And this is already then going to start to soften down a lot of what we've got actually. So this is darker here, so I'm going to pop this in. Popping that down. Then we've got some of these nice lighter bits. These seem to do come over the top, so kind of overlap here. So again, it's deciding on a tone that you want. I've gone for like a creamy one, and I'm just going to kind of just get some of those little lighter areas in here. And you can just almost like create little, where you're seeing any fluffy bits, yeah, and just kind of create that with your pastel. So we can use this pastel in so many fabulous ways. Before I just finally pop back in a few of the little markings in there. And again, if you want to go back to using your blending tip and put some of those in, you'll probably still have a little bit of those dark colours on the top of your blending tip. You can just, from earlier, so you could even do that. You could even have a little bit of dark pastel there. Just scoop a little bit up and then use that blending tip, dip it in the pastel over here and bring it over. So it's not too heavy, but it's just kind of getting things in. Without wanting to, if you don't want to use a really heavy pastel. So I'm going to come back in here with this eye and bring that in. That's quite a structure there. And then your final bit with each little section is then to go in with your lighter. So if you have anything that is getting more towards white or whatever, very light, then build that up last. But again, we're going harder on top, fixing that into place. I'm going to go in with the tiniest bit of white on there. Not much at all. Just so it really kind of just pulls it out. And we just keep building up each bit like that as we go along. So as I said in here, we've got some nice Bring a bit more of that. Down the centre here, we can just pop some of those markings in nice and lightly, or you can draw it in with your pastel. It's entirely up to you. I'm just keeping that a little bit softer, but we're just adding some of the markings which really help to kind of start to create, make it look a little bit more like a snow leopard in here. Bringing that down. Just get these little markings, and they're very soft, so we don't need, sometimes, because this fur is really short down here, we don't need an awful lot of, really kind of hard lines in this bit. We can just have just a few dip in there. And then I will probably just go and draw the edge of that nose. Again, we're just looking at how far it comes out in its own. Quite light at this side, actually, it's not that tipped. And then you can decide. So I think my nose was a bit short. I'm a bit happier now. Now on the second look, I'm really concentrating on all of these features, working out how far everything goes in. Following the shape round. And again, then we can just look at where I think it's going to go. So these things do change. We're shifting and moving things all the time, which is really good. I've just got a little bit of the nose in there. But then, of course, we've got the edge underneath the nose as well. So again, you can go back and use your little tip if you want to. Just kind of just pop that in nice and lightly there. This is why it was quite important to get that background in underneath, so when we do move things, it'll be okay. So you can even just put a nice light line on when you're actually drawing this out to start with, if you're not absolutely sure where you want to go with it. And I'm bringing this chin right down here now. So we kind of like do a little bit and then add a little bit more on, do a little bit, add a little bit more on. It just helps us to do it. And things like this, we can see, it may well be that there are bits, little bits of patterns that are kind of creating more of a straight edge where the nose is inside here. So, and then we'll be adding more patterns and things on there. So just keep going, and go which way you want. Do you want to put the nose on? Do you want to put the other? I'm going to go in with this. It's quite dark, isn't it, there? This side of this nose here. I'm going to get the dark one in. And I will be using my blending tip for that. That comes over the top. Because again, it just makes things much easier to get the shape. Pull it round. Pull that shape round and actually kind of create the markings as well. In the other areas. I'm fixing that in place. So this is the same as using a finger really, because you're just fixing it in. And then get some of this pinky ready, whatever colour you're seeing. Have a go at pink. And if we're going overlapping any of the darker, we need to make sure it's on nice and plenty of pressure on there. And again, you can always use your blending tip to do that. I just switch ends though. Keep just kind of blowing off a little bit of the excess dust as well. If you get any little light areas, you can pop those in over the top. And then anything like that is going to feel, again, it's going to feel ever so hard. But we can soften it all down. So all the stuff that's coming around the outside will soften down. So I'm just looking at how that goes. But I'm feeling like my nose is a little bit out there. That's, yeah, it is, you see. So actually, I need to move in a bit. Interesting that. So, you just keep looking at it all the time, just checking. For me, I'm looking at this here. I need to move that bit in a little bit as well. And that's fine, just adjust it as you go. And again here, so where I've made this nose a little bit too wide, I'll just go over it and just bring that shape in. That's the beauty, we can do that. Nothing is set in stone, nor should it be. So get rid of that hard line now. I'm just going to pop in any little highlights on the top of this as well, this face, because of course the highlights make things pop forward a bit. So if you've got all your other shades and your warmer ones and your darker ones, your grey tone ones, remember to put your little highlights in as well, because that will make that bit of the face kind of jump forwards a little bit, which is what we need sometimes here. So just going to pop that in. Right, so just keep going around. So whether it's this side or this side, around the mouth or at the top, that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to continue just down around this side of the mouth just because that's where I am. But by all means, if you want to do a little bit of something else, that's fine. You just follow these lovely patterns as well. We can kind of make some of these, put some of these tones in. So I'll just do this little mouth and we'll come back to the top and then we'll take another pause. There's quite a lot to see on this one, which is really interesting. So it's quite white around the mouth, but then there's these warmer tones in here. So I'm just going to make sure I've got plenty of those warmer colours in here as well. So this, because the warmer ones will make the shape appear to be a bit more, a bit more rounded. So I'm going to fix those into place. There's a bit there as well. It's quite a big chunk there. So if you're not sure, just go in with the one that you feel like has got the most of that particular tone in. And then you can always, put some of the markings or whatever around it. I'm going to go in with some particularly light ones here. Ones will start to help us get the shape because they're bright and there we go. Coming through. We always put colour back in there. And then we also do really need that shadow as well to be able to get that, see that real depth of where the mouth is and everything. So pop that in. And just observing all the little curves and tones in there. You can smudge it out a little bit if you want to with your fingertip if you've got you know, a bigger work surface. That makes that a bit easier. But then we've got all these fantastic, looks very light areas. So I'm going to go in and pop some of this really light fluffy fur under where the chin is. Beautiful. So that is really light, isn't it? And again, you can just put plenty of pressure, especially if you're going over any of the you know, background colours or anything like that. Try not to muddy them up, just give them a little bit of a blend. That magic, isn't it? Starts to suddenly appear the shape because we're popping these little contours and then the right tones in. I'm going to pop another one that's got a little bit of warmth to it in there as well, because I can see a bit of warmth. That helps again with the shape. It's just a small amount. And then I want to pop some of these lovely markings in. So again, it depends on what colour, whether you want to go in with a really dark one. You can, again, go in with your blending tip and load that up if you want to and get those in. Or you can go in, I'm going to go in with a bit of charcoal core in here as well. I feel like that feels, some of it doesn't all feel really dark black in there. So I'm going to go in with a dark charcoaly one. And I'm just tapping where I think, I mean, you can't get every single marking on. You can, we're trying to get the feel of this beautiful animal without, we don't need to get so pulled into it that we're like, oh my gosh, every marking has to be accurate. No, it doesn't, because we're human at the end of the day. I mean, you can spend a long time doing that. All I mean is don't feel like in a 2-hour session you have to get all that in, because that's like, would be a bit unfair. So yeah, so we can start to pop in. So I'm just kind of making some marks just around where these whiskery bits are. I'm going in with charcoal, just the edge over the top of that we've got already, but just kind of wiggling and making a few little marks. But you can always go darker if you prefer. Oops. I've just got a sharp little bit that's broken off actually. Sometimes that's quite useful. And then we're starting to, you know, this creates a shape as well. And then we can all recognise that, can't we? We can all recognise what's happening here. With this snow leopard, you know, there might be some other little bits, like some different, slightly browny colours. So we're just switching for the tones for that, and that's overlaps nicely over these base colours that we've put on. You see, you might start seeing some blue colours or all sorts, or you might see some little grey tones. It's all sorts going on, isn't there? And then, you know, so you could do that, or you can switch back. I'm just going to continue a bit around this eye. I'm going to pop a few more greyish tones in here, just overlapping on this here. I'm just smudging that a bit over the top. It's absolutely fine to do that. You know, and then you can continue around that, and then the face, and get these kind of really, what we have got in here, and we'll just show you these edges, because is to remember that we've got these lovely, quite thick, rounded areas of the snow leopard, and they're quite warm, and that makes it feel rounder rather than making the face, because we've got this very angular bit here. It can feel a bit like a tiger, but when we start to get these bigger, softer areas popped in, it starts to take it a much more rounded shape. So sometimes you might just want to get some of these warmer bits in. You could use yellows, you could use some of the colours, but it just starts to add a little bit of depth. Yeah. Or you want, or you could go in some yellow colours. You do get quite a lot of yellow tones, I think, on these. Just depends how bright you want to go in with it. You can soften it down with a slightly other colour, but it does help. It starts to kind of create that lovely shape that we're getting. Just pop a little bit under as a base and then work over the top with it. I want to try it. Like that now with a taupey colour. It's it's giving it, creating a little bit of shape, just warming it up. So I'm just going to leave that in there and I'm going to come in and do a little bit of this eye section. So again, we need to take that round now. So again, our head's going to feel quite flat because we've just got a straight line. And everything we do is we're just going to put some more shape in here with the head going round. So I'm just going to look at what's on the edge there. You can actually, like, some of this lovely fur here. It goes in a swooping, it swoops up a little bit, doesn't it? Just nice to pop something down, really. It's a bit lighter in that area. So I've gone in with a creamy colour, I suppose this is, but this other side's got a little bit more warmth to it until it comes up and then it's a bit lighter there. But we're going to start somewhere. Put a bit of a peachy one in. So we were softening those eyes, but as soon as we start to add some of these colours and shades, we're starting to soften down this eye already, which is what we want. All these angular things are going to feel a bit more animal and soft. So, you can see how the fur comes outwards like that. So I'm going to put the base down where it's particularly lighter. And then use that to work over the top. You just got to be a bit careful. We kind of, layering things the way we see them as well. Because some of these colours do come over the top, so it's a bit back to, if we were doing a landscape, we put all those dark ones down, but actually you can't if it does overlayer over the top of them. We've got to kind of like take that into account sometimes. So that's a little look on here for these other feature. Brownie ones actually, maybe it's got a bit of this colour in there. So all we can do is just keep adding little patches where we're seeing colours, and then responding to them and building up a little bit more of a layer here and a little bit more of a layer there, and eventually it will take a while, but it will start to feel like we're getting more shape in there. As well. Because it's catching on the and I would expect that a bit down here. That's all we're doing, just looking, what's next. Tiny bit of just all the time being careful not to over mix things in, which is great. Press on a little bit, because we can do that as well if you're noticing things you didn't notice at the beginning. By all means, start to pop those in. It may just be that you've got little bits of colour or whatever that you're seeing as well, like bits of the eyebrow or there's a pattern here I hadn't noticed, and we just start to pop in these lovely markings. Again, you can use your blending tool a bit, just very lightly, or you could just use your finger and just kind of smudge it, because again, we're just popping in a few things that we're starting to see, as well as those, colours and things like that we're noticing. And then it all kind of joins up, because it's just like, oh, actually, yeah, this kind of joins up to that pattern, and I can see that now, and so that's how it all kind of comes together, really. I'm going to take a pause in a minute, because I know it's quite a bit to think about there. See how everyone's getting on. Okay, so we can just keep kind of coming round now and starting to fill these other, little bits and pieces of details on. So I'm going to get some of the fur, some of the shades of the fur in here. Just to fill out this face and make it really nice and rounded, and then kind of work in the top as well, and just get those ears in, because there's lots we can do. Even with the ears, we can start to kind of pop some of those furs that we can see they're a bit warmer in there. It's less warmth on the top of the head, actually, where the sun's shining down, which is what you'd expect. So it's a bit cooler here, but whereas over here, it's quite warm in places, isn't it? So we'll just keep popping these in. Again, the top of the head is, like we said, it's quite light, so we can follow just by kind of getting some of these in. Some of these shapes. Particular light in here. So with this, you can just kind of find a couple of particularly strong, markings. You can wiggle your pastel as well a bit to get those on. And bring these up. So bring these kind of some of these markings up. Whether you go in with, a dark brown or you go in with a black, it's entirely up to you. I'm just finding some of these markings and just following it. Following that round. Again, we're not trying to create a photograph here. I know I keep saying that, but it's sometimes we get carried away in thinking everything's got to be like photographic, and it hasn't at all. Yeah, you can wiggle it about. You don't have to have a really harsh line in there. But yeah, I'm just picking out a couple of bits. You might pick this middle section up where it's, the markings are more heavy, for example. And I'm moving the shape, moving my head up much further than I had it originally. So I'm just going to pop some greys and things in here, underneath as well. It's quite heavily marked, isn't it? The markings are lovely. Picking up these little highlights as well on the top. It's quite cool. Especially if it's flattened down. So if the colours that you've put on have kind of flattened down because I've got some darks on, you can just pop these back on. Just nice and hard over the top, really. So maybe the edge should be pastel because obviously we're having a bit um, more room if you've got a bigger one. I'll go in with this. But you can always build it up again, you know. Yeah, and then if you're wanting to kind of like get some of these ears in as well, sometimes that can feel a little bit like, you know, we've not quite got enough information there when we haven't got the ears. So you can get some of that in to help. And also some of the shading as well helps, doesn't it? It's very dark in there. I would put that down, that really dark one down. Find the air. And the reason I'm popping this down is that obviously this could get really, because it's so intensely dark, get really quite, muddy if we're not careful. So Yeah, you see when we bring that ear round, that's already starting to create quite a bit of this, where we expect this shape to go. Yeah, and then the mouth as well, we can really extend that round a little bit more. Yeah, and again, we're just kind of bringing all of these lovely shapes and shades out. Different directions around the ear and everything, which are fantastic, aren't they? When you look at all of the different directions, they all go. Sometimes, you have to put a little dark one as well between the others to be able to see those really kind of like big tufts of fur. So you need like the contrast of a different colour in there. And then that's quite light, isn't it? Top of it is quite light. And just keeping going. Like, just look at the patches even around the ears, the patches of, colours. I'm finding this quite grey up here. So just popping that in. Just got to be careful of our fingers at this point because you sometimes end up with so much colour loaded on that it tends to get everywhere. And then there's quite a few nice little kind of brown colours going through there. Just again, it just helps us get a bit of a contrast, doesn't it? But again, we can follow these directional marks as well, where we get like a build up like that. Just to kind of puff it out a bit. And just really soften it, really like we were doing it in the background, so it's much softer. It gets kind of feels a bit fluffier. And then you notice, between kind of doing that, you start to notice any more of the markings or whatever that are there that you can just pop on and soften down a bit. They're just nice and fluffy. Or any light bits, I'm just realised on the ears there's a few kind of brighter, lighter patches. And again, I'll just make sure that when you're getting those in, that your pastel is clear. And again, we're creating this shape around the face just with these last little bits. So, we don't always need it, just kind of getting in these swathes of colours here. Again, we've got some warm ones, it's getting the brighter ones in there. And all of these different elements just kind of work together to create this lovely shape around the face, making it kind of more rounded over the top of those other colours that you've got in there. So like here, I'm going to go back in just with a little bits of greys, and I might not put it everywhere. I might just be kind of like just kind of dotting it around, just kind of very easily pressing it in like that. So you've just got a little bit of contrast, just ever so slightly, with a couple of different colours coming through. And any lighter areas, as we said, there's some lighter ones. Just putting those in between. Getting some of these nice markings in. There's more directional marks that we can see in there as well. It's just really lovely. As well as some of these that are quite, quite specific, aren't they? If you follow, there are some quite more definite marks, should I say. Some we want to soften down a bit, and some we want to keep a little bit more, some of the more definite markings. So it just depends on how far you want to tap that shape, really. And then again, we can, look at what we've got and how much direction we want to put in, or how much warmth there is here as well. So just work back between what we've got and over the top. It's just all starting then.
Sorry, Becky.
Together, I'll just press pause, hang on. So we can just kind of keep going, popping in these lovely little areas, keeping it nice and keeping that shape coming round kind of the outside, which will make it much much more rounded, the word I was looking for there. Just keep going, keep building up those light ones as well. Again, that will help. And then also you can see the direction it changes when, when it's coming around this way. That helps as well to get the body feeling in a different place. You just follow that shape in there. We've got some on the back here, actually. Some of the markings. Oh, it's lovely. It's just such a beautiful animal. Pop them in. If there's anything else you can see, or any colourways that come up, then again, just keep popping those in. And then obviously, you know, where you're seeing these much lighter bits, that's when it's going to really help then get that fluffiness as well. Bring those near the underside and get some nice little linear bits and pull those over the top. Use a bit of background to come through. Get that real softness. Because you can create these kind of soft fur coming over here, but you can also very gently just pull it over as well. And then just build that up. This is very bright, isn't it? Around the same, which is what we were saying earlier. This is where we can use the really bright areas to affect, because, you know, because the other areas aren't quite so as light as this one. It really helps to build that picture. We can make it soft. Just every now and again, just, you know, if you're using a lighter coloured pastel to build up these light areas, just make sure you just clean it off every now and again. Yeah, so we I'll start to really enjoy those mark making, aren't we? You know, because by this point we've kind of been doing it a while, and it just becomes much easier to keep that lovely flow going. You know, you can soften anything down if it's too hard. Just bring a bit of warmth back through if it gets a bit too light as well. You can also have a little look at, sometimes you get this like bluish shadow or greyish shadow cast underneath where the head, you know, where the head meets the neck as well. So you can just pop a little suggestion there. That sometimes helps as well. That we know that that's where it changes. I think you've done really, really well tonight, all of you. I think I'm going to stop there. Might just have a quick look at, you know, the last thing I suppose you could do is just have a little look and just see if you've got the lightest areas where you want them and then the darkest areas where you want those as well. If there's anywhere you want to lighten or darken or whatever, then you can do that as well. I might actually make this eye just slightly less bright. Feels a bit soft. I think it needs to be a bit soft. Yeah, if we're looking for, we're basically looking for any little bits we want to neaten up or change the shape of just ever so slightly, we can do that. Or look for like contrast, look for the kind of balance across the picture. So, you know, is it darkest, you know, in the right areas? Do I need to do anything else with it, etc.? But I think it's a great first study. And then, you know, the next time you come back and you do another animal, it's just you've got lots of ideas there about how you'll do it. And there's obviously the other ideas you can try as well, which is lovely. So that's great. I think I'll probably take a final pause there for now. And I think it's like sometimes you can be sat so clearly over that you need to come back to it a little bit and, you know, another day and see if there's anything that you want to do with it. I'm going to just soften the side down as well again. Yeah. Okay, let's take a final pause there. And I hope you've enjoyed that.